Hello and welcome to Modelkit Stuff. It's tool review day and we're looking at this, the Swallowtail airbrush from Gaahleri. This is quite an exciting product. Yes, hello and welcome to Modelkit Stuff. Tool review day. We've reviewed so many tools on this channel over the years. This is one of the tools I'm most excited about because this is possibly a game changer for me in a number of ways. We'll talk about that as we go through. I've not had a tool quite like this before, and I think for and many people in the hobby who like me are steadily getting older, this might be of interest. So, right, what is it? The Swallowtail. We've got a picture on the box there of a swallowtail butterfly. It's designed with that in mind, I guess, in some way. But Gaahleri do two Swallowtail airbrushes currently, if you look on their website. So there's an original release, which is a fine airbrush, but then there's this second release, which is a further development of the same tool. And this one was developed in cooperation with a modeler. Many of us will probably know because he has a YouTube channel, and they've done some refinements to it, and that's the one that I have. So what you get is this box. It came in a cardboard shipper, and on the back of the box it tells us that this particular airbrush will deal with extreme detail and go all the way up to wide as well. So if you're not familiar with Gaahleri, they are a Chinese manufacturer. They're not a copycat manufacturer. They don't copy other people's airbrushes and put out cheap unbranded alternatives. What they do is they design their own airbrushes, and they take some of the best ideas of many years of airbrushing and put their own innovation to it and come up with some real cutting edge, leading brand, innovative airbrushes at prices that are far more budget friendly to people involved in what can be an expensive hobby. It's as expensive as you want to make it, and this airbrush is probably one of the more expensive Gaahleri airbrushes, but I think when you see what we've got in here, you'll understand why. So the box is a magnet closer, so you've got a great little storage box, and as we open it up, we've got a little diagram here that's going to show us the full strip down of the airbrush. Now, many of these parts you will hardly ever see because, you know, unless you've got a problem, you don't need to strip a lot of this down during normal working, but it's great to see what we've got in there. Now, there's 3 needles on here because this comes with 3 needles, a 0.28, a 0.5, and believe it or not, a 0.7. Now, I always say that most modelers are usually working between 0.2 and 0.5, so having a 0.7 is a real great addition to the range of needles that you've got as an airbrusher. I mean, it will use some paint, but it's there. And we've got one 2/3 ounce gravity cup there. But we'll talk about that later as well. It shows us the positions of all our O-rings, which is really handy. And then we've got a little include in here, which talks about the process of co-designing the airbrush. And then, as always with the Gaahleri airbrush, we've got this little paper fold out thing here, which is personalized to this brush, and it talks about if something's going wrong, what you need to do to correct it, what's causing it, how to strip and unload it, how to undo the nozzles, and as you can see, it's not generic. They're talking about the exact airbrush that we've got in here. Then we've got some protective sponge, because we can use this as a long-term storage box, and when we remove that, we can see we've got our airbrush in here and our spare seals, which is one of the hallmarks of Gaahleri. I'm told one or two other manufacturers do it as well. But I've not come across it, to be honest. Right, so what we've got in here, we've got a nice laid out airbrush, so it's easy to pack and repack your airbrush as you use it. So we've got the airbrush itself, 2 paint cups, although, well, I suppose it's showing you a paint cup there, and then there's one mounted on the airbrush. So there is 2 on the picture. I just sort of didn't think about it that way. 2 paint cups. Then we've got 2 sets of needles and the associated nozzle fittings for it, some lubrication, and then the airbrush itself. So let's talk about the airbrush itself. It comes preloaded with the 0.28 needle, so the finer needle of the 3. Just going to get the box out of the way for a minute. And then we can look more closely at this. So what we've got here is a trigger airbrush. So when you think about ordinary airbrushes, this is the Mobius that we recently reviewed. What you've got is an instrument that you hold very much like a pen, with the trigger on the top, and then you're sort of holding it between your thumb and your finger with the trigger using it, and it's resting on your hand there. And it's quite a fine, delicate instrument, and it feels like you've got lots of control over it. This is different because this is a trigger, so you're holding a pistol grip sort of style handle, and then you've got this little cutout on each side. So if you're left-handed, it's just as comfortable as if you're right-handed, yeah, and your thumb sits nicely in that cutout on the other side. So it doesn't matter which hand you hold it in, it's nice and comfortable. So you've got a real grip on it there, and then your finger, your first finger there, sits really comfortably on the trigger. And that's how you use it. So rather than holding it like that, you're holding it like that. And that is very comfortable, I have to say. This is my first pistol grip airbrush. There are a number of companies that make them, and I've always thought about it as an airbrush for putting down paint, extended use, large areas, and that sort of stuff. But the fact that you've got this small needle in here, and they've said on the back of the box that you can do extreme detail, that got me thinking, how easy is it holding an airbrush this way to do some extreme detail? Well, the only way to find out is to try it. So after we've reviewed the tool here, we're going to have a look at how it works out, and we're going to do a little bit of playing on my Scharnhorst hull, and have a look at how well this puts paint down in different formats. Because my thought is, when you're used to using an airbrush like this, how easy is it to control? Because actually the airbrush, when you hold an airbrush normally, it's sort of sat in the middle. So your fingers are all around it and it's sat in the middle. So it's a bit like using a pen. You're expecting the ink to come out in the middle, where when you're holding this, actually the airbrush is above your hand. So it's in a different place. So there might be a process of having to get used to this a little bit. But we will see. Anyway, what we get is we get the main body of the airbrush, and then this plastic grip, which is really comfortable. It's shaped to fit your hand nicely, and you can see how my lower finger here, my little finger, is still sat on the handle, even though the handle is going beyond the fittings there. So there's nothing uncomfortable about holding this. It fits in really nicely, actually. Other than that, you've got a fairly standard airbrush setup. So we've got a nozzle with a nozzle cap, Then we've got the trigger rather than the push trigger, which is, you know, works really nicely. You've got a little curve there to stop it bashing into your finger. And then here we've got our little body at the end where we can release the needle chucking nut, and then we've got at the end here a fluid control knob, which basically is a stop. So it stops you going, stops the trigger pulling back too far, and that's really handy because when you're doing something like camouflage patterns or something like that, you don't want the spray to go wider. You can stop that going any wider than you want. It also means sometimes you can just accidentally pull a bit back, or especially on long sessions when you're getting a bit fatigued, it's easy to just sort of continue to put a little bit too much pressure on and gradually widen it, and that stop there, that fluid control, will stop that, and it basically screws in and out, and you can see that the chucking nut then makes contact with it, and that's what becomes your block, and then you can travel further. And obviously there's a finite amount of travel. You get to a point where that's your maximum travel anyway, so that's where I usually take my chucking nut up to. There you go. So I know that that's the maximum travel, so it's easy to adjust as you're going with the paint cup on and so on. So we get 2 paint cups, and what is exciting is that the size of the paint cups. So we get this larger one here, which is, I'm just going to read the size. This is a 2/3 fluid ounce one. And you plop that on like so. That goes in nicely, and yeah, it's a bit heavier than a normal airbrush, but you'd expect that because you've got all this extra stuff, but it feels nicely balanced, it feels comfortable. So if you're doing a big job like priming a 1/200 ship hull, which I'll be doing with this soon, then this big paint cup is great. You're not having to constantly refill it as you're working. So both of the paint cups supplied have a really nice smooth interior, which means they're nice and easy to clean. It's easy to get my finger in, which means it's easy to get any dried paint off. Particularly primer can be a problem. So yeah, all good in there. Now, the other thing that I want to say about the paint cups is all the paint cups across the range of Gaahleri brushes are interchangeable. So if you want to put something smaller on that you've got with another airbrush, you can do, or if there's another airbrush in the range and you think actually that little cup would be ideal for this particular job, you can buy them all separately. They're all interchangeable. So this is the one off my Mobius, and you can see that goes in no problem at all. Now, one thing that I do find when you first get your airbrush is sometimes the lids on the paint cups can be a little stiff to get off. What I'd say is, once you've taken your airbrush lid off, just put it on lightly. Don't push it down, because if you push it down, it can be a bit stiff to get off. And then you're sort of going around and trying to get it off. But first time when you get it out, you might find they're a bit stiff. I've found that across all 3 of the airbrushes that I have of theirs. So yeah, really nice size paint cups, which really help make sure that you've got plenty of capacity for larger jobs, and obviously for smaller jobs you just put a bit less in. Now, I did speak to them about creating a little cover. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Something like this. This is from my Hadron Steinbach, and what you basically do is, rather than putting a paint cup in, let me just take this out. You screw that in, and all it does is it basically covers the thread and stops the paint getting in the thread, so it's nice and easy to clean. They have confirmed back to me that they are developing one of these, so you'll then be able to use that on any of your airbrushes. So that's fantastic. They do listen to feedback from their customers, which is brilliant. So this is our standard airbrush. Let's have a look at the nozzle. The nozzle, you've got a little protection cap here, a needle protection cap. Now, I usually take these off when they're in use, and I use it just for protecting the needle when not in use. So this is how I would use the airbrush normally. And the needle protrudes a fair distance, which is good because it means it's easy when you've got a little bit of tip dry just to get that off. So that's fantastic. And then the actual nozzle cap itself is nice and broad and easy to get off. It's not been narrowed down like they quite often are. It's the same width as the body, and you can see you can just bring out your nozzle, and just like the other nozzles within the Gaahleri airbrushes that I've reviewed, we have here, let me just bring you in, we have in the little notches which really help get that really super fine atomization. So really nice little design nozzle there with a PTFE seal, so it's going to deal with all of your acrylics and your enamel paints as well. So you can put enamel washes through here, Tamiya's panel line accent colour if you wanted, the various MIG weathering washes that are all enamels, or indeed proper good enamel paints. Humbrol enamels would go through here, no problem, and then you could put white spirit through to clean it, no problem. So yeah, it will deal with anything you want to throw at it in the way of a paint system, pretty much. So you can see that then just pops back in and it goes into place really, really easily. It's as simple as that. So cleaning this nozzle is going to be really simple, because look how wide your nozzle is. Dead easy to get in there. If I get you a cotton bud, you can see cotton bud will get in there really easy. You've got loads of space. It's not pokey and tight in there. So I really like that. On the back here, we've got the handle, or end body piece, whatever you want to call it. And if you unscrew this, you've then got access to the needle chucking nut and the needle, so you can loosen the needle and extract your needle through the body. Now this is a self-centering needle, so when you come to put it in, you're not risking the needle scraping on anything or anything like that. And you can see you've got a lovely smooth action there, and then you can put it back in from the back like so, and at this point I can feel a little bit of resistance, that it's centering, and then you can push your brush back through. So that's how that works. I'm just going to take the needle out for a second. Now this here is holding the spring case in, and so in here we've got a little slider with a spring, and as I move the trigger, you'll perhaps see, if I can get that to focus, you can perhaps see that sliding. So you can see that's working. So there's a little cutout there so that you can check the operation is good. If you're coming, you can, if your needle's not moving and that's moving, you know that your needle's got paint on it, or your chucking nuck's loose or something like that. So it's really handy to have that. But here's a little tip for you. Let me just put the needle back in. So if we just pop the needle in like so, and I'm not going to put the nozzle in, but I'm going to put the nozzle cap in, and we just push the needle through. There we go, so we can see it, and I lock it in place. So here's a little tip. You can loosen this and that will make the trigger a bit slacker. Yeah, so just like you can on many good quality airbrushes, where you can just adjust this nut and loosen your trigger, you can do exactly the same with this. Just pull it out a little bit and you get a bit less resistance. Now let's just listen when I screw this back into place. You can hear it retightening the slider spring in there. So when that's fully locked into place, that's when you've got your most resistance. So that's useful because this airbrush, I think, is really handy for people who've perhaps got a little bit of arthritis and finger control is getting uncomfortable. You can make this more comfortable, and that's one of the things I think this airbrush is really handy for. One of my subscribers mentioned that to me, and my mother-in-law has arthritis, and I know how difficult it can be to grip everyday objects. So this is a really great solution if you've got a little bit of an issue with your hand control. I also think it's probably better from a point of view of handshake as well. Let me show you what I mean. When you're holding it like this and you've got to rest your hand, but because of how you're holding it, you're still going to get shake. Whereas with this, because you're holding it on the grip, when you hold your hand's much more steady. So if you've got a bit of handshake, you might find this is a better solution. Now, I don't have handshake. I'm fortunate. I've got a very, very steady hand. So I can't prove that. But in my mind, this seems to be easier to steady my hand holding this than holding a more traditional airbrush setup. So just a thought at least. Anyway, when it comes to cleaning the airbrush, well, as you can see, most of the time this is all you've got to do, because you can flush out through there. You can see the nozzle is fairly well contained. We've got this brass tube here, which is then coming into connection with this when the outer nozzle case is on, the nozzle cap. Then the actual nozzle is being held tight against it. So you shouldn't be getting paint into there unless it's been really loose. So even if you did, easy to get in and clean in there, no problem. You get a paintbrush in there, you get one of these smaller pointy cotton swabs, you get in there easy enough. As you can see, it goes all the way around, no problem. So cleaning in your airbrush, no real issue. If we take this off, you can see you can then pull this section out as well, and you can get right the way down there. Now you've got to go in with a screwdriver to start stripping out the rest of it, but there's no real reason to do that unless you need to replace a seal in there. And the most common reason for needing to replace the seal is over tightening, where the seals can split and things like that. So let's get that back into place. So actually, from a point of view of general maintenance of the airbrush in general use, it's a little bit more simple. You've got less items to strip down and less areas the paint's going to get to. So the trigger is held in with a little screw. You can see there's a screw there. So you'd unscrew it from there, and then you can just pull your trigger out if you need to disassemble it, but most of the time you're not going to need to do that. So there you go, really easy. It comes with a pre-fitted quick connect, so that's good. The airbrush is good to go. And if you get paint and you've got paint over there and the paint's maybe gone under the handle, all you do is take this off, like so, and lift the plastic handle over the top. Now you don't really want to start messing with anything else in here. You don't want to disassemble any of this. You shouldn't have a need to. And when you look on the diagram on the box, it does actually say not recommended. But I just wanted to show you how you get the plastic handle off. So if you ever need to clean the plastic handle, you can do that. Don't worry about the rest of the assembly because it's all well self-contained and protected. So you do get a longer shaft, but that's obvious because of the handle. But yeah, it's nice and easy to take off and clean up if that's what you need to do. And then obviously you just plop that handle back in. It self-positions itself. You put the locking nut back on, like so. And it's done in a moment. Absolutely dead easy, nice and easy to strip. Really, really good. So you want to change the needle. Let's say we go for the 0.7 here. So it comes with a different nozzle cap because you've got a different size opening. Comes with a separate nozzle. They've marked it as an 07. So you sort of have to remember what needle you've got in there, because there isn't one of these for the 02. They're only giving you 2. So when you swap a needle out, you put in the wrong needle in the case. So you have to remember where you're up to. There's no markings on these needles, which is something I have suggested to them, as make it easier to remember what needle you've got in. But you can tell, you can work it out. There are differences in the nozzle shape. You've got difference in the hole. And then if I put these two needles together, you can see that the chamfer depths are different. So you can tell the difference. Anyway, you could mark it in some way. You could paint the end or something like that. But I don't really see the need. So this is our 0.7. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 0.7 nozzle in. I'm just going to show you. They are different. It's got a different colour seal for a start, but the length of the nozzle is ever so slightly different. The opening width is different, so you can tell. You ain't gonna get them mixed up. So I'm just gonna plop that into there like so. It just drops into place. You screw that back on. Finger tight only, obviously. Then we plop our needle in, push it all the way through so you can see it's come out, and I can't push it any further. Locking shut nut just locks that needle into place, and then the needle cap, protection cap, it's the same one for all 3 nozzle sizes. So nice and easy, and we're ready to go. I mean, how quick was that? I'm not even going to time it, it's that quick. So yeah, dead easy, and then your body just goes on the back there, and you've got your stop working and what have you. So I think it's really lovely. It's well thought out. It's very, very comfortable. Yes, it's a bit heavier, but because you're holding it like that rather than like that, you're going to get fatigue more slowly, I think, because it's a more comfortable handle position. So yeah, that's it. So the 07 is going to put a lot of paint down, and that's going to give you great coverage for big areas. 132 aircraft, you know, especially if you're doing a 132 bomber, for heaven's sake, then that's absolutely ideal. Big ship hulls, you know, if you're doing a 1200 Titanic, perfect. But let me show you something else you can get with it, which will also help with paint coverage. What I want to show you is this. This is called a fan cap, and it only works with the 0.5 needle, which I've loaded into the airbrush. And the reason I'm showing you is because you can actually purchase this as a bundle with the airbrush and the cap. And what the fan cap does is it allows you to do ultra wide spraying. So that's really handy when you want to put paint down on wide areas. And what you get is you get this little ring and you get this cap separate. The reason why it's separate is because if you look at it, it has these little cutouts here. You can turn it and create different patternation as you put the paint down. Okay, so we take the air cap off, we take the nozzle cap off, and lift carefully the nozzle off. The nozzle drops inside the cap, and then we slot that into place, and that just drops into place like so, and then the ring goes over the top to lock that into place. Now before you tighten it up, you decide what shape you want, and you need to have a play around to work out what that is, and then you just tighten it, and that then should give you a wider angle of paint, and you can turn that around to suit your needs, how you want to paint it. So that's really helpful for doing wide areas. So like I say, it only works with a 0.5 needle, which means you'll have a bit better paint usage control, and you'll chuck the paint down through this. So we're going to try all of this in a minute and show you what all of this looks like. But I've got to say, so far, just reviewing the tool, I'm mightily impressed with it. It's the same quality that I've come to expect from the Gaahleri products that I've already reviewed. It's very, very comfortable, and it's given me flexibility. 3 needles in here. Fantastic. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some messing around. I'm going to do some painting with it, and we'll see how the fan cap upgrade works on it and how it puts down paint. Maybe with a couple of needles we'll have a play, see how the ultra fine works, and go to the ultra wide, and ultimately we're going to paint my Scharnhorst hull with this, and show you some of the highlights of using this airbrush. So before we do that though, let's just talk about cost and the deal you can get through me. So currently, if you want to buy into this airbrush, it will cost you $119.99. Doesn't matter whether you're in the US or Europe or wherever you are, that's the price. It's a single price. So that's a $20 discount that they're currently running on the airbrush on its own. If you want to get the upgraded Swallowtail cap with it, well, that's currently discounted down to $18.99 on its own right. Or you can get it in a bundle, it's $136.98. But if you use the discount code that I'm putting in here, go through my website link so that Gaahleri know you've come from me, and then put that discount in. I can get you another 10% off. So my discount at the checkout will give you 10% off anything that's on the website. If you use my link through to the website, you'll get the most current, guarantee you get the most current offers on the website. And also Gaahleri get an understanding of how many people are watching this video and then coming to them through my channel, which is helpful for getting more things to review in the future, no doubt. So yeah, you can buy it on its own. You can buy it as a bundle A, which is with the cap. There is a separate holder. This mounts into a little holder, so if you want to store it outside of the box, you can do that. That will cost you $126.98. Or there's a further bundle, bundle C, which has both the holder and the cap, and all of that will cost you $163 $8.97, which is a really competitive price, I think, for such a nice, well thought through, well engineered airbrush. You know, it's still competitive with bigger brands because there is much more involved in the mechanics of this instrument than your standard airbrush. More material, it's a bigger brush, got more materials, different workings, a little bit more complication, yet for you, the user, it's more simplified possibly. So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts on the tool. Let's have a play with it. The side of my Scharnhorst, which we'll be painting over soon anyway. So I'm interested to see about control and positioning. So there's a sort of slack in the trigger, and you can hear the air coming out. You can see there's a bit of slack, and then you get some air before you get to the point where the paint's coming. You see? I've got no paint at this point. And then we get to about there, and I can start feeling resistance, and I think that's the point we'll start seeing paint. So let's give it a go. Well, that's interesting. Well, that works okay. Just wait for my compressor. Right, so let's try some close-up sort of detail work. Just going to blow any dust away first. Right, let's just see how we get on. Well, I am surprised at the amount of precision I can get with a trigger airbrush. Like I say, I've not used one before, but that's going down beautifully. Really does look good. So let's just see on full belt how much we can put down on the smallest needle. So on our smallest needle we can get a fairly decent amount of coverage, and I can force dry this. So you can see it does everything that an ordinary airbrush would do. My paint's a little bit thin, but I know that I've sort of done that deliberately to make sure we have good flow. So yeah, that has laid that down really nicely. Now I'm going to be putting some primer down on this soon, and we're going to use the number 5 fantail. So you'll see that in action next. But I've got to say, my first impression of this is you've got lots of control. My concern about precision, because you're not pressing from the top, doesn't seem to be valid. It seems to give you lots of control. You can feel the resistance, so you know when you're about to put paint through. So you're getting lots of feedback through the brush into your hand, so you know what you're doing. I was really impressed with that, actually. Right, we're back, and this time we've got the 0.5 needle in and the little fantail nozzle on it. And so far the only drawback to the airbrush I've found is that I haven't got a stand. I've had to improvise a stand because it won't fit in my spray bottle and it won't fit on my normal airbrush stand. It's just a little bit too short for the airbrush bottle. So that poses a little bit of a problem when you want to load paint in it and you really want to be hands-free for that. I've had to improvise one. Here's a picture. So yeah, that's the only thing I've come across, but we can get around that now we know about it. So I've not used this fan nozzle before, so this will be interesting to see how we get on. So let's put some primer down on my Scharnhorst. Well, I have to say that's going down in a lovely, controlled manner. I'm getting a nice even finish. Lots of control on the airbrush, and I'm not even using the stop mechanism. Yeah, I really love that. Right, I'm going to mask up and carry on doing my Scharnhorst. Well, there you have it, another excellent airbrush from Gaahleri, the GHAC Swallowtail. I'm really impressed with it. Having now used it, I really enjoyed using it. Some of the concerns I had, because basically I've never used a trigger operated airbrush before, they're all unfounded. It was really easy to use and I enjoyed using it a lot, and I'm looking forward to using it more and more. The only word of caution I'd say is you've got 3 needles in here, and when you've got them outside of their containers, it's difficult to tell which needle is which. So I've put a little note on the airbrush for me to remind me which needle I've got in, because if I don't use this for 4 or 5 weeks, there's no way I'm going to remember what needle I left in there. So that's my only word of caution. Make sure you've got some system of remembering what needle you've got in there. There are other accessories you can get for this, different air caps and bits and pieces that you can purchase all online on the web store. So I will leave in the description below the video a link to the web store. If you use that link, then you make sure you're getting the most up-to-date offers, and you can use my discount code Modelkitstuff010 and get 10% off at the checkout. If you do that, you'll get the best offers. I can assure you, you can't get it on places like Amazon cheaper. And if you spend $50 in the US, UK or Europe, then you will get free shipping as well. So it's a really, really good deal. This is one of the more expensive airbrushes you can get from Gaahleri, but you can see why. You're getting a lot in this kit, and these 3 needles will do everything you'll ever need to do. And the 0.7, you know, that's a phenomenal step up for people that do large areas. So yeah, I've really enjoyed using it. I think it's a handy tool. I've spoken to Gaahleri about a stand, and they assure me they have one in development, so that while you're using this, you can stand the airbrush and not have to worry about spilling paint and stuff, because it simply doesn't fit in the airbrush stands that I've got for the more traditional airbrush. So yeah, perfect. They've got something in development, so keep your eyes out for that. And until the next tool review, thank you very much for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now. Hi, and thanks for watching. You can support the channel by hitting the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss any content that I put out. Modelkit Stuff is a self-funded channel, and I don't do membership or Patreon or buy me a coffee. So if you'd like to further donate to the channel and ensure the cameras keep rolling and the content keeps coming, then you can consider making a donation through my PayPal. You will find a link to that in the text below. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you soon.